Yeah, welcome back to a new series called The Most Powerful Black Man of the Last 500 Years, where we discuss life during the reign of King Henri Christophe. Now, stay up to date, go watch part 1 through 5 so everything makes sense, right? As we know, part 1, we discussed the origins. Part 2, we discussed the solidification of power. Part 3, we discussed the reign of power. Part 4, we discussed the death and downfall. Part 5, we discussed what his wife did, what his daughters did after he died. We discussed the enormous amount of money they found inside the palace, inside the citadel. And we actually started breaking out the government documents and the government letters. We actually read a crazy letter that he wrote to the British government where he spoke about life in the kingdom. He spoke about his relationship with France. He spoke about the rivalry between the kingdom up north and the mulatto republic down south. And before we even jump back into it, I actually want to discuss one of the famous pictures of Christophe, actually the picture of when he took his own life. Now, a lot of people in the comment section, they didn't really know. They actually thought that this was his own men coming in to, assassinate him or something like that. Actually, no. If you look at the picture, Christophe actually got his gun in his right hand. That gun is actually in the Haitian Museum in Haiti. You could actually go see the gun that Christophe offed himself with. He had the gun in his right hand. That was after, I told you, he had the conversation with his wife, his kids, his daughters. He told one of his secretaries, one of his homeboys, Baron Dupuis, he was like, save yourself. My time is finished. And then he went back to his private quarters. A few minutes passed by, and then they heard a bang. And in that bang is when you see like the guards come in. They got their swords out. They ready for war. They thinking somebody done snuck into the office, done shot Christophe. But then they realize, damn, Christophe shot himself. You see to Christophe's right, one of the guards staring at the gun like, oh, he offed himself. You see the dude in the window, right? He like smashing the window. Like, yo, he got the shock look on his face. You got the dude to the left. He got the sword out thinking the enemy done snuck into the damn office. But they like, yo, Christophe done actually offed himself. And if you look directly behind him, that boy that you see, I think like holding something in the air. In my opinion, I think that's probably his son, Prince Jacques Victor. And then unfortunately he actually died a few days later. The rebels got to him, unfortunately, died at a very young age. Y'all off the Prince Royal, man. I never forget y'all for that. But yeah, man, this is actually one of the famous pictures right there, bro. You know what I'm saying? Christophe realized, the insurgents, they're on the way. And he told his wife, I don't know what he told his wife. He had a final conversation with his wife, and then bang, offed himself. You feel me? And yeah, man. Also, somebody else had asked me, what was the origin between the beef between the blacks and the mulattoes? But y'all gotta understand, a lot of people don't know the mulattoes were actually the first ones to really set things off, get things popping for real. Before the blacks even went plantation to plantation, burning everything down, it was the mulattoes that devised the plan. Because even though the mulattoes had a comfortable life, an elite situation on the colony, meaning a lot of them were plantation owners, businessmen, the ones who gave out loans, they really controlled the economy for real. Now, of course, their fathers, their uncles, etc., were actually at the top politically, economically, but at the end of the day, they controlled a large sector of the economy. They had a lot of money, and they owned about a quarter of all the slaves on the colony. And a lot of people don't know that there was a revolt led by a man named Vincent OJ and another mulatto as well. It was a failed rebellion, and they actually got executed in public. And these were some elite mulattoes, the type of mulattoes that be up in France, dressing all fancy and stuff like that. They executed them in public like they were some Negroes. And it was after that failed rebellion by the mulattoes that the blacks came through. And then for a short time, the mulattoes and the blacks, they were working together, especially to repel the invaders coming through. You had Spain trying to invade, take over the island. You had the British trying to invade and take over the island. So for a short period of time, the blacks and the mulattoes, we were working in league. They were working in sync. The rivalry began when, after the British were driven out, after the Spanish were driven out, in the late 1790s, the situation on the colony was something like the British Commonwealth, right? It pledged allegiance to the French flag, but it was really under autonomous control from Toussaint Louverture in the north and Andre Rigaud in the south. Andre Rigaud, as we know, big mulatto general. His proteges, General Alexander Pétion, became president, and General Jean-Pierre Boyer became president right after him. So big mulatto chief, right? Toussaint, Andre Rigaud controlled the colony. 1799, civil war between the blacks and the mulattoes. Toussaint Louverture pulled up with 50,000 troops. Andre Rigaud pulled up 15,000 troops. What was the source of that civil war? As we know, the French sent an agent by a man named, I believe, Thomas Edouville, and General Andre Rigaud actually sent the shooters. Now, of course, it was a failed ambush. It says around the year 1798, Toussaint was riding in his carriage, chilling, right? Moving through the town. And then the shooters came through and shot everything up. Now, of course, by the grace of God, they missed, but they just barely missed. They said if Toussaint was moving just a little to the left, to the right, he would have got his head blown off. After that, Toussaint declared Andre Rigaud to be a traitor. declared war, came through 50,000 deep, and conquered the whole southern province. General Andre Rigaud and all the other mulatto chiefs ran out the colony, went into exile for like 2-3 years, and then came back with France in 1802. When the mulattoes came back with France, they realized, oh wait, they about to restore slavery, and in the old colonial system that put us back on the bottom again. Then after that, a lot of them joined forces with the blacks, declared independence. As we know, General Alexander Pétion ended up declaring his own government, and he was the mastermind behind the assassination by Dessalines. And then General Christophe went back to the north in his headquarters, the stronghold of the former slaves, set up his own government, the Kingdom of Haiti. As we know, fast forward to 1820, Christophe took his own life in October. And then after that, the mulatto chiefs came through 20,000 deep and incorporated Christophe's territory. Now, one thing that sticks out to me is when the generals of the Haitian army raised the troops, man, they come in deep, bro. They come in deep. They come in squad deep. They're not coming 2,000, 3,000. Nah, we coming 20, 30, 40,000 deep. If you notice throughout the story, right? Going back to the mulatto civil war with the blacks in 1799, Toussaint came through over 50,000 deep, bro. Y'all remember in 1806 when General Alexander Pétion tried to rig the election, and then Christophe heard about it. He came through over 20,000 deep, man. Y'all remember in 1812, Christophe launched an attack on Port-au-Prince, 20,000 deep. Y'all remember when Christophe died, President Jean-Pierre Boyer and all the Southern mulatto chiefs came through over 20,000 deep. Y'all don't understand. 20,000 people riding down on you, bro. That ain't nothing light, man. That's like a stadium worth of people, man. Like riding down on you strapped with guns and shotguns and machetes and all that, bro. Like, you gotta understand, bro. Dudes was really on some gangster time back in them days, man. Dudes was on gangster time, bro. Imagine you had control over 20,000 men talking about, yo, we riding. Bro, I'm telling you, that's the type of power that black men in the modern day, you know, we forgot what that feel like. You know what I mean? And we got to get back to that feeling, man. We got to get back to that, bro. But yeah, man, we about to jump back into these letters, these official government letters, official government documents written by King Henri Christophe himself and those who wrote to him and those he replied to. And man, everything in between. Let's get back into it, man. King Henri to Thomas Clarkson, 26th of April, 1818, 15th year of our independence. Dear sir and friend, I received your communications on the 18th of November, 1817, and the 4th of March of that present year. Though I've had no secure way of replying, I flatter myself that you have no doubt as to the pleasure I feel each time I receive new proof of your zeal and your friendship for our cause. It appears that the rumors concerning the sale of the Spanish part of Haiti to France are without foundation. At least they have been so until now. A new captain general has arrived in that part of the island. He is Don Sebastian Kindelin, replacing Don Carlos de Uriton. The former sent one of his superior officers for the purpose of announcing to me his appointment and arrival, as well as his desire to maintain the same relationships of friendship and good neighborliness which have heretofore existed between the Kingdom of Haiti and the Spanish colony. However, shortly afterward, I was informed that this new captain general was offering, especially the Frenchmen, tracts of land for settlement and many other encouragements to persuade them to immigrate to the Spanish part of the island. It would seem then, judging by this new system which she has adopted, that Spain is attempting to raise her colony from its present state of decay, that she certainly has no intention of ceding to France. On the other hand, she appears to wish to arouse in us the alarm which must inevitably be inspired by the residents near our frontiers of these troublemakers. The French colonists would assuredly use every means within their power not to only perpetuate slavery in the Spanish part of the island, but also to sow the germs of dissension and revolt in Haiti, and by their intrigues to rob us of the peace which we at present enjoy. We are profiting by our precious moment of tranquility to devote ourselves to the tasks which are the object of all our desires, education and agriculture, which alone can make our people numerous and happy. What conduct should we observe under such trying circumstances? Should we allow our most cruel enemies to establish themselves at our very gates under the specious cause of Spanish protection? And if this Captain General should give asylum and protection to our enemies, could he complain if we in turn should harbor and aid the Spanish revolutionists? And yet we have taken no such step, but we reserve the right to do so if necessary. So hold up. Christophe basically, writing to Britain, right? Letting them know, listen, the homies that controlling the Spanish part of the island, they letting the French come through, buy land, set up shop, buy property, buy plantations, own slaves, and they right at our gates. They're right at our borders. They're inviting our French enemies right to our borders, right? So he's telling the homies in Great Britain, like, would I be wrong if I send guns over there, if I send men over there to just overthrow that whole colony and set everything on fire? Would I be wrong? Now, I didn't do it yet, but just letting you know, I wouldn't be wrong if I decided to do it. Just giving you the heads up, though. Let's get back into it. Your proposal that I should write to the Emperor of Russia as to an illustrious and magnanimous champion of the cause of the Africans and their descendants, begging his imperial majesty to use his influence in the Congress so as to thwart the designs of the French against Haiti, appeals to me a great deal. But would this not request be premature? Should not the ground first be prepared? I believe, my friend, that you might rather sound out further the disposition of that power. Sometime after receiving your letter, I read in the public papers that 5 Russian ships and 3 frigates of that same nationality had put in at an English port on the way to Cadiz. I understood then that you were mistaken in your conjectures when you did me the favor of writing that Russia had refused to give ships to Spain. I have read with attention your comments on the case of Davidson. Our enemies eagerly seized upon that affair, representing it under false colors and inventing aggravating circumstances which did not exist. You will see all the details of that matter in a report written by Baron Dupuis, my secretary interpreter, which I am sending to you, and you will be able to judge the hatred of our enemies and thus attributing to me something of which I was entirely ignorant. Neither Davidson or any of his compatriots complained to me of any type of punishment. The only person who brought the matter to my attention was Mr. Stratford, an English merchant, who came to ask for Davidson's release, a request which I immediately granted. Now hold up. Back in that time, right, there was a scandal that popped off, right? So Christophe had locked this English dude up by the name of Davidson. It was like the Davidson scandal, right? And apparently, I don't know what this English dude did, right? Nobody really knows, but apparently he did something. He broke the law and he was up in the Citadel, apparently getting tortured, right? And it was a major scandal in Europe during that time. As we know, the propaganda and the hatred in the media against the Haitian government was at 100%. So of course they seized this opportunity. Oh my God, there's this Englishman, there's this man from Europe, there's this white man, he locked up in this big dungeon. The blacks got him in the dungeon, they tortured him in the dungeon. We got it. You know what I'm saying? They going crazy. So Christophe like, bro, listen, I don't even know what you even talking about, bro. I don't even know. Like, I was ignorant of all that, bro. Those our enemies are just lying on me, bro. All right, but you know, Mr. Stratford came and I gave him his release and I let him go. So obviously he was locked up in the Citadel, and then he actually got released when some dude named Mr. Stratford came to Christophe and demanded his release, and he released him. Now, in my opinion, do I think that the white man was up in the Citadel getting tortured? Hell yeah, he was. Now, did he probably deserve it? Yeah, he probably did. But at the end of the day, you can't be, you know, doing your foreign nationals like that. So that was a big scandal up in Europe, and Christophe had to issue a statement, and he had to let his friends know up in Europe, listen, it's all good, everything is all fine, don't worry, you don't got nothing to worry about. Let's get back into it. Though this sort of punishment is not authorized by our laws, nevertheless, in accordance with your suggestions, I have given special orders that it shall never be repeated. I am grateful to you for the part you played in this affair. Those responsible for this scandal were not only serving the cause of our enemies, but also were attempting to draw profit from the situation by pretending that their business had suffered. It did not take long. After they had presented their petitions to show unmistakably which had been the real purpose of their intrigues, they were trying to make their creditors believe that a few days' imprisonment had been the cause of their bankruptcy. We read with the greatest interest the treaty signed in Madrid, whereby the final abolition of the slave trade is fixed for the year 1820. It would be impossible to commend too highly the generous sacrifices made by England in order to obtain from France conditions so favorable to the cause of humanity. All will rebound to the glory of the great and noble British nation, which is constantly giving to Europe and the world new proofs of its unselfishness. Who could speak of it without the heartiest admiration? So hold up. You gotta understand how Christophe just be buttering dudes up, bro. Christophe be getting in their head, bro. Christophe that type of dude, like, yo, bro, you really that dude, man. Yo, everybody should be like you, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get like you, playboy. You know what I'm saying? You doing your thing, you doing it big, bro. You know, we gotta get like you, bro. You really the man, though. You really the man. So Christophe be buttering them up, bro. I'm telling you, political genius, bro. If you notice in his letters, he always is complimenting the person who the letter is being sent to. He always buttering them up. He always throwing that compliment every 2-3 paragraphs. You know what I mean? Because listen, it's politics, baby. It's politics. You gotta finesse. You gotta finagle. You gotta get it popping, man. Let's get back into it. The measures taken by England to ensure that the treaty will have the most fortunate possible effects have shown us with what unusual interest she regards its full observance. When we read this document, our affection for your incomparable nation redoubles, and we realize what efforts we in turn must make in order to fulfill your hope of being someday able to rebuild Africa to a level of prosperity. In spite of all the machinations and insults of our detractors, we have not yet seen the treaty made with Portugal, but we fear that power will not be disposed to grant such generous conditions. She still depends heavily on the profits of the odious slave trade, which nevertheless will be fatal to her Brazilian colony in the long run. So hold up. Christophe was correct. In fact, I believe Portugal was one of the last European powers to abolish the slave trade close to the 1900s. So Christophe in the early 1800s already knew, man, them Portuguese boys, they running the bag up off that slave trade. I don't think they ever gonna stop. I don't think they ever gonna want to stop. And he was correct. They did not want to stop until very, very late in the game. And Christophe was correct. In the end, what is Portugal now? Portugal is nothing now. Portugal is nobody now. So they started the slave trade. They were the last ones to finish running the bag up off the slave trade. And in the end, they still ended up broke. So Christophe political genius already calculated their demise in the early 1800s. Let's get back into it. The latest letters we have received from Europe mention the fact that the French are still discussing the question of a new expedition against Haiti. We are further informed that the Allied powers are considering, or perhaps are on the point of, withdrawing their troops from French territory, and even of diminishing the debt which that nation had in the treaties promised to pay by installments. The new Minister of War, General Saint-Cyr, had gone so far as to present a project which was discussed at a meeting of Louis XVIII's cabinet concerning the means to be used against Haiti. I am convinced that if an attempt is made to carry out this plan, you will not fail to warn me and give me the benefit of your advice. Meanwhile, I am profiting by the tranquility we at present enjoy to put into effect several projects conceived long time ago, but the execution of which had been prevented by the difficult circumstances in which we found ourselves. I refer to the sale of all the national domain of the kingdom, which had already taken place. I am trying, insofar as I can, to augment the number of property owners by granting equally to all Haitians, whatever may be their rank or station in life, the right to purchase land, plantations, and houses. I have given special consideration to the heads of families and to the most laborers and deserving tillers of the soil. This measure has already had the most fortunate effects on our agriculture and has fulfilled all my expectations. Farming has been greatly extended, both by the increase in the number of proprietors and by the steps I have taken against men of no known profession, the idle and the vagabond who had taken refuge in the cities and towns where they were leading a useless and dissolute existence. By sending them back to their land, I put them in a position to lead a more secure life and one more profitable to public morality. Now hold up. Christophe was like, bro, y'all not about to be on the damn street, flooding the cities, unemployed, being bummy, looking bummy. Nah, bro, we got something for you to do, bro. Listen, get over here and plant this rice, plant this yam, you know what I mean? Plant some food, man, start selling some food, man, get some money in your pocket, do something with your life, bro. Y'all not about to turn the kingdom of Haiti down to the Republic of Haiti in the South, where everybody just bummy and broken, ain't nothing popping, ain't no job popping, ain't no money popping. Nah, bro, up in the kingdom, we got something for you to do, bro. We got something for you to do. The lifeblood of the nation is agriculture. And the attention that Christophe paid to agriculture was not without reason. Because now in the modern day, as we can look around, many black nations are not self-sufficient in their agriculture. They cannot feed themselves. They cannot export enough to feed the world as they should. A lot of them in the modern day are dependent upon imports from America, which come from farmers who receive subsidies by the government. So we got to get back on our self-sufficient agriculture wave, man, like back in the day. Let's jump back into it. Inspectors have been appointed to visit each farm and see that the fields are cared for and that they correspond in extent to the number of arms which cultivate them. The inspectors are instructed to make sure that foodstuffs and grains have been planted in sufficient quantity to permit laying up a reserve, so that we shall not find ourselves in the trouble in which we were left last year, when the hurricanes and too abundant rains caused in all the western islands food shortages, though these were not so severe here as elsewhere. I greatly regret that it is still impossible for me to put into practice as extensively as I should have my favorite plan, that of returning the soldiers of the army to agricultural pursuits. In order to do this, I should have to be able to assure my fellow citizens positively that the measure would be in no way to endanger their safety. I should also have to persuade the soldiers that there is no further need to remain under arms. Nothing in the world, my friend, would give me as much pleasure as to be in a position to carry out in a determined and general manner this great plan of improvement. It is true that I have made a beginning, but only peace and security will permit pushing it through to a satisfactory conclusion. When I read your letters and those of our mutual friends, when I see that our ideas are in perfect harmony and understand that these ideas concerning the necessity of devoting ourselves wholly to agriculture, morality, public education, and religion are capable of great extension, I cannot but bewail and deplore this imperious necessity which prevents this execution of my projects in its entirety. I repeat that I must have the positive assurance that England will recognize our independence, or will take some equivalent step, such as promising that the French will undertake no expedition to blockade our ports and harass our territory, and also that Spain will not be permitted to sell her part of the island to our enemies, thus leaving the latter established at our rear. I do not find, my friend, in the letters of our friends I look in vain for, this positive assurance so necessary, so indispensable, that I may disband the army and persuade the soldiers that they should devote themselves to agriculture. Nevertheless, in order to consecrate all of our energies to the regeneration of our country, though this task may seem a hard one to foreigners, and though certain delicate points are in fact difficult to accomplish, I indeed do not find it an impossible undertaking. The Haitians must have this assurance, this guarantee, this perfect security, which alone can tranquilize them and free them of their dread of being again molested by the unexpected attacks of an enemy whom they know only too well through bitter experience. We should never be willing to lay ourselves open to the same charges with which the Haitian people reproached the late Governor Toussaint, accusations which he merited because of allowing himself to be surprised by the French at that very moment when he was assuring his compatriots that the French would send out no expedition, was disarming his troops, sending them back to the fields. That unfortunate chief was the victim of his own errors. So you see, Christophe was like, listen, the last time we tried to disband the army, the last time we tried to focus on agriculture, the last time we tried to convert the soldiers to farmers so they could, contribute to the growing economy, when Toussaint tried to do that and he let everybody know there's nothing to worry about, it was at that very moment that the French attacked. And it was at that very moment that, like Christophe said, he became a victim of his own errors. He died in the French prison. So Christophe, like, I ain't going out like my old head. You gotta understand, Toussaint was like close to 60 years old. He was an old head. Back at that time, Christophe was like in his 20s and his 30s. So he was like, man, I ain't going out like my old head. Man, what? I ain't dying like that. Hell nah. And Christophe, he died. He took himself out the game. So ain't nobody could say that they captured, Christophe, they assassinated Christophe. Ain't nobody could say that. See, Dessalines, he got assassinated. You know what I'm saying? They ran up on him when they drive by, you know what I'm saying? Brat, you know what I'm saying? But it's also another story that said he was poisoned at the house of General Alexander Pichot. Those are the two theories. And then Toussaint, he died in a French prison. So the enemy captured him, died in the French prison, but Christophe, he like, man, I'm dying in the palace, bro. Taking my own self out the game. Y'all not about to, kill me, disgrace my corpse. Hell nah, bro. Now get out of here. You know what I'm saying? So Christophe took himself out the game. He died on his own terms. Let's get back into it. I am confident, dear friend, that you will always continue to aid me with your sage advice and your wide knowledge, and beg of you that you will not fail to write to me as often as possible. Please believe me when I say that your letters always give me the greatest pleasure. Each communication I receive from you serves only to increase the esteem, confidence, and perfect friendship which you have inspired in me. It is with these sentiments that I subscribe myself, your sincere friend, Henri. So Christophe got to throw another compliment up in there. You know what I'm saying? It's my greatest pleasure, man. Each communication I receive, it increases my esteem, my confidence, my friendship. You know what I'm saying? Listen, bro, you got to make sure, when you're maneuvering in these conversations of power, in these realms of power, you know what I'm saying? You got to know how to, BS your way through the game. You know what I'm saying? Let's get back into it. Thomas Clarkson to King Henri. Now, this is going to be the first letter that we actually read coming to the king, right? Dated London, 26th of August, 1818. It was with double pleasure, after so long a silence, that I received your majesty's letter on the 26th of April, and I shall endeavor to answer the contents of it in a clear and frank manner. I have read with satisfaction the reports of Baron Dupuy in the case of Davidson. The facts, however, which it contains were known to me before, and they have all been used to your majesty's advantage. The noise has now happily blown over, and even though you returned to me your thanks for the part I took in that affair, Mr. Weatherby, who is now at Vienna, is much more deserving of them. He was in England, advocating your majesty's cause, not only in the case of Davidson, but also against other scandals which found their way into the English newspapers from France. I cannot express to you with what pleasure I received your majesty's assurance that the cruel instruments of punishment mentioned in my former letter were no more to be used in Haiti. Such instruments have been expelled from all free and enlightened countries. They are tolerated only in ignorant and barbaric places or in the land of slavery. So hold up. So as we know, that scandal that popped off with Christophe, you know what I'm saying? He was up in the Citadel torturing the white man. And then he was like, Thomas Clarkson wrote to him like, bro, you know what I'm saying? We don't do that no more, bro. That's 1700s. You know what I'm saying? We don't do that in enlightened nations. You know what I'm saying? These are barbaric practices. We only do this in the land of slavery. In enlightened and free countries, we do not employ methods of torture in incarceration. Thomas Clarkson must have forgot he's a Britishman. Y'all got colonies all over the Caribbean. Please do not lecture Christophe about barbaric practices. Let's get back into it. You seem to me to have misunderstood the circumstances of the Russian ships of war, which lay for some time in our ports on their way to Spain. The King of Spain was then in great want of ships to send troops and shores to South America. He employed agents to buy them where they could find them. A few old ships, half rotten, were found in the royal dockyards of Russia, which the emperor had no objection to sell. These were bought and conducted by Russian officers and sailors to Cadiz. It was a simple bargain of accommodation on both sides, but the Emperor of Russia seems to have taken no part in the war between Spain and her colonies, for the officers and crews before mentioned having delivered up the vessels to the purchase of Cadiz, returning to their own country. So this is reference to Christophe's letter, because Christophe had wrote to them. He was like, yo, bro, I'm trying to get in contact with the Emperor of Russia, but I'm hearing that the Emperor of Russia is doing business with Spain. And at this point, Christophe looks at Spain as an enemy because the Spanish crown is allowing former plantation owners in France to come to Spanish Santo Domingo and set up shop, buy land, settle, etc., etc. So he's like, bro, why the Emperor of Russia linking up with Spain? You know what I'm saying? So then Thomas Clarkson basically telling him, bro, those are just some old ships, some old rotten ships that was sitting in the ports already, and he didn't care about them. He just let them have them. Now, Thomas Clarkson might just be lying because you know how these white boys do, but that's the explanation that Thomas Clarkson gave to Christophe as to why the Emperor of Russia was doing business with Spain, and he don't rock with Spain. Christophe looks at Spain as an enemy, so he wanted to know what was up with that, and that was the answer that he gave to Christophe. Let's get back into it. There does not now appear to be any disposition in France to send an expedition against Haiti. Your Majesty seems to have been alarmed on this subject by the proposal of Saint-Cyr as detailed in the French papers. I saw this account myself, but I believed it to be a fabrication. If I had supposed it to be true, you may be assured that I would have given you timely notice of it. You seem also to have been alarmed at the report that the Allied armies were to be withdrawn from France and that her debt to Europe was to be diminished. I believe it to be true that these troops will leave France before the end of the present year, but that a considerable part of them will be stationed close upon our frontiers, at least for another year. I believe the debt has been diminished a little, but not much. Security has been taken for the payment upon certain rents in France, and this will keep France poor for some little time to come. My reasons for supposing that France will not fit out an expedition against Haiti are much the same as those contained in my former letters, and Mr. Wilberforce and all our other friends agree with me on this subject. Such an expedition would be unpopular in France because it would be thought impracticable. France has at present no money to spare for a foreign armament. She has no ships sufficient in number to support it. It is the opinion of many that there will be another revolution in France after the Allied armies are withdrawn, so that present government would not think it be prudent or even safe to send her soldiers from home into foreign parts. And last, what interest can France have in regaining Haiti when she has abolished the slave trade? To enable your Majesty to judge more clearly of this matter, I shall give you the following short account of the progress made within the last 4 years in the great work of the abolition of the slave trade. In the year 1814, when the Allied kings made their first treaty with Louis XVIII, that king, yielding to the advice of his cabinet and to the cries of the ex-colonists, reserved to himself the power of continuing the slave trade for 5 more years. This reservation seemed so horrible and unjust that the whole English nation rose up to express their public abhorrence of it. 1,300 petitions, which were signed by over 1 million people, were presented to the English Parliament, praying that this wicked part of treaty with France might be done away. The consequence was that at the Congress of Vienna, France agreed to give up this article of the treaty. This agreement, however, was not followed by any royal decree. Accordingly, French merchants continued their activity on the west coast of Africa. In the state of things, the English government thought it is their duty again to apply to the court of France. The representation had the desired effect. For in the autumn 1817, a royal ordinance appeared which proclaimed that no French subject should for the future supply the French colonies with slaves. The French merchants evaded it. They continued the trade, but under a new destination. They now avoided the colonies of their mother country, but supplied foreigners with slaves. In this manner, the trade was still continued. The Duke of Wellington at Paris laid the facts before Louis XVIII in person and requested that the royal ordinance of 1817 might be so amended as to answer the end intended. Another royal decree followed in January 1818, which made it unlawful for any French subject to be concerned at all with this odious trade. In the month of April following, both chambers confirmed this decree. It was then ordained that both ship and cargo should be forfeited if taken, and that the captains and officers should lose the right of navigating any French vessel in the future. From this moment, the abolition of the slave trade may be considered as solid and substantial on the part of France. The English government then set on foot a project for an allied maritime force to cruise on the coast of Africa and to protect it from future ravages on the north of the line. That is, from the great river Senegal to the kingdom of Angola. It is therefore understood that 12 or 13 ships of war are to be kept cruising in these seas for this noble purpose. In April last, the King of France sent Iris from Rochefort to Senegal, where she captured 2 French vessels. This ship was followed by the brig Argus from Lorient and by the Moucheron from port of Toulon. These vessels are to watch the coast of Africa from the Senegal to the Gambia. 3 English ships of war are now watching the coast from the Gambia to Angola. But as vast extent of the coast, I am told that other foreign ships of war are to join the English, and that these are to be fixed on by Russia, Austria, Prussia, Holland, Sweden, Denmark, Spain, Portugal, and others in conjunction. If these things are so, what has your Majesty to fear from France with respect to Haiti? While France conducted herself in such a manner as to make us doubt her sincerity as to the abolition of this wicked traffic, you had just reason for alarm. But she has now pledged herself to this great measure. The law for the abolition of the slave trade is now recorded as a law of France. Haiti could not be useful to France unless France could send slaves to make new plantations there or reduce the Haitians themselves to slavery. To send slaves there would be to break the treaty with Europe, and to make slaves of the Haitians would be impossible. To suppose, on the other hand, that France would make war upon Haiti for the sole purpose of extermination would be absurd. For besides her own immense loss of men and money in such an attempt, of what use would Haiti be to France without its inhabitants? I come now to a very delicate point noticed in your Majesty's letter. I agree with you that if England would acknowledge the independence of Haiti, you would enjoy tranquility and that you would be able to disband a part of your troops and realize your great project of agriculture. But I fear that such a conduct on the part of the English government, though very desirable, is not practicable at the present moment. If England were to publicly acknowledge the independence of Haiti, I am sure she would give offense to the French cabinet, with which she is at present in habits of friendship. Such a measure would be considered as a direct and public insult upon the French nation, and I think would endanger the throne of the king himself, whose continuance there contributes towards the repose of Europe. The French are a high-minded, vain, and conceited people. They fancy themselves to be the greatest nation upon the earth and are infinitely jealous of everything that appears to affect their honor or their supposed greatness. Their cry against Louis XVIII is that he was put upon the throne of France not by the choice of his subjects, but by the bayonets of the English, and that he is even at this point ruled by the English cabinet. Hence, he is very unpopular in France. The English name is unpopular there also. I leave you to judge whether it is not probable that the acknowledgement of the independence of Haiti by the English government would be attended with bad consequences. I think the French nation would consider it to be such an insult that they would urge the king either to hostilities against England or against Haiti, and who knows whether he would be able to resist the tide of popular opinion. But suppose that it would be impracticable at the present moment to obtain from the English government the acknowledgement of Haiti, I do not see why that circumstance should hinder your majesty from disbanding a part of your troops and transferring their labors to agriculture. In England, we have a regular army, but besides this, we have another armed force in time of peace, which we call the militia. The militia amounts to about 50,000 men. Every country furnishes its quota according to its population. Every regiment is called upon to assemble for 1 month in the year, which is always before the harvest begins. During this time, they receive pay, but no longer. It is surprising what experience they gain in military tactics in this short time. At the end of the month, they return home. In this manner, they serve 1 month in the year for 5 years, when the time of their service is completed. I must observe, however, that though they are only called upon to assemble for 1 month in the year, in a time of peace, they are liable to be called upon at all times of public danger. And in the case of war, they are continued in arms as long as the war continues. Something like this might be adopted by your majesty for the present. You might disband 1/3 or 1/2 of your army. You might give the disbanded soldiers certain portions of land, partly as a reward for their service and partly on condition that they should assemble for once a month in the year to keep up their military knowledge. By such a plan, your majesty might increase the number of your cultivators and yet not diminish the number of the defenders of your country. I am sorry to hear about the conduct of Don Sebastian and of the Spanish court in inviting Frenchmen, in particular, to settle in your neighborhood. I hope it was a mere act of colonization without any intention of vexing you, and I am inclined to this opinion because the Spanish government has invited foreigners of all countries to settle in Cuba, where it is not likely where such settlers can injure you. But whatever may be the motive, I entreat your majesty to be calm and to act with prudence and dignity in the occasion. I can show you that you have no just occasion for alarm from that quarter, and I think I can submit to you a proposition which will render you secure without bringing upon to you the necessity of any measures that may be offensive to the court of Spain. I hope you will find upon a mature consideration of the subject either that you have no just cause for alarm or that you have the remedy in your own hands. Your majesty should never lose sight of this noble idea that the slave trade may now be considered to be abolished. This idea should accompany all your reasonings, either as they relate to the affairs of Haiti or as they relate to your connection with other countries in your own neighborhood. Things are entirely altered there by this new event. In the first place, there can be no extension of slavery in the Spanish part of the island, except by birth, for the French settlers who are now invited there cannot procure any more slaves from Africa. The abolition of the slave trade has agreed upon by all in Europe. No French ship can carry them there. No Spanish ship can carry them there, except she brings them from the south of the line, and this only till May 1820. No Portuguese ship can legally carry them there at all, for though Portugal is allowed to carry on a slave trade for some time, she is only allowed to do it under restrictions. She cannot take any slaves from Africa on the north of the line, and she can only carry them to her own South American possessions. Secondly, the new French settlers can never become formidable to you in point of numbers, even if they should accept the invitation of the Spanish Captain General. For, not being able to get slaves, they cannot open any new plantations. And if a few miserable French settlers without any money or without the means of a livelihood should attempt to raise disturbances in your part of Haiti, you have the remedy in your own hands. The first thing will be to complain of their conduct to the new Captain General and to demand of him that they should be sent off the island. And if he doesn't listen to you, you would then be justified in the eyes of all Europe in attempting to punish them yourself. It appears to me to be perfectly clear that if you wish to prevent the settlement of the French and others in the Spanish part of Haiti, your majesty has nothing to do but to prevent them from importing slaves there. You will now probably ask me, how can you prevent the importation of slaves into the Spanish part of Haiti? You may fit out a small ship of war to watch this part of the island, and to act as a magistrate by taking up all offenders, that is, by enforcing the agreement made by the kings of Europe. Now, hold up. So basically, Thomas Clarkson is basically saying, bro, if you got a problem with the slave trade like that, and you don't want any slaves coming in to the Dominican side of the island, listen, you got all the rights and liberties to set up a warship on that part of the island and patrol everything coming in and coming out, because you would then be enforcing the treaty made by the kings of Europe, and nobody would be able to tell you different. Let's get back into it. I do not know whether there has yet been any friendly communication between your majesty and General Jean-Pierre Boyer, the successor of General Alexander Petron. If there has been such an intercourse, permit me to say that I think that both of you ought to agree not only upon some plan of defense against foreign invasion, but also upon fitting out each of you a small ship of war to prevent the landing of slaves in the Spanish part of the island. You would probably ask me whether if you should adopt my proposition, you would not be giving any offense to some of the powers of Europe. You would only be doing what they themselves have agreed to do. You would only be assisting them in confirming and enforcing their own laws. To elucidate this, suppose that a ship of war fitted out by your majesty were to capture an English slave ship off the Spanish part of Haiti. What would be the consequence? Would by doing so involve yourself in a quarrel with the English government? What damages could any English merchant or captain whose ship you had taken obtain against you by making a complaint at home? None at all. And this rule, I believe, holds good in all cases, except in the case of the capture of a Spanish slave ship. The Spaniards are allowed to supply their own possessions, and of course, the Spanish part of Haiti till May 1820. But you might even capture a Spanish vessel if you could prove that she brought her slaves from any part of Africa north of the line. I have submitted this proposition to your majesty's serious and deliberate consideration. You will, of course, not put it into execution, even if you approve of it, till we have communicated again with each other. It is possible that there may be some new law on the subject as the approaching Congress of the Sovereigns at France, which will take place in about 2 months. Besides, many things ought to be done before you enter upon such a measure. You ought to acquaint the new Spanish general with your intention. You also ought to issue a proclamation to the allied kings of Europe, stating not only your intention, but your motives, and also your determination to give orders to the officers you may employ to keep as close as possible their cruises in the coast of Haiti, and not to go near any European islands in the neighborhood. This proclamation should appear in the London newspapers. If I should find from your majesty's next letter that you are inclined to adopt my proposition, I will consult Mr. Wilberforce and your other friends, and we will give you our best advice how far you ought to go and how far you would count upon the protection of the English government in such a case. I am very pleased to find that Gulliver and Daniel, who are the bearers of my last letters to you, are likely to be useful in your schools. I hope to be able to hear an equally good account of Mr. Symonds, of which the Committee of Foreign and British School Society speak very highly, both of his character and his talent. My friend Mr. Allen is going next week to St. Petersburg. I wish he may arrive in time to see the Emperor of Russia before he leaves. Should he be so fortunate, I am sure he will endeavor to inspire his Imperial Majesty with an esteem for your character and with a regard for the prosperity of Haiti. I am with esteem and best wishes, your Majesty's friend, Thomas Clarkson. Next letter. This is kind of short. The Count of Limonade to Thomas Clarkson, the Secretary of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs in Haiti, at Cap Henri, September 14th, 1818, 15th year of our independence. Dear sir and friend, you will doubtless learn with regret of an accident which occurred at the Citadel on the 25th of August. A bolt of lightning struck a magazine, setting off some powder and a store of cartridges. This explosion destroyed most of the apartments and set the structure afire. Thanks to the heroic action of His Majesty, Christophe, who came quickly to the spot, followed by the officers of his general staff, his personal guard, the troops of the garrison, and the inhabitants of the nearby towns, it was possible to stop the progress of the fire. Most of the apartments of the interior of the Citadel, which were exposed to the open air, were consumed, but the bomb-proof powder rooms and all the case-mated batteries and the supply magazines were preserved, suffering absolutely no damage. In short, and God be thanked, the Citadel still remains capable of offering a stout resistance. The most cruel blow, and the one which hurts His Majesty the most, was the loss of his brother-in-law, Prince Noel, Duke of Port-de-Paix, and the governor of the Citadel, as well as the destruction of a number of the brave officers and soldiers of the garrison. We have 159 deaths to bemoan. I am acquainting you with these sad details, so that you may reassure our friends, our enemies will not fail to represent this misfortune as infinitely more disastrous than it really was. There is in our correspondence a break caused by the serious illness I have had, and from which I have not yet fully recovered. But you may rest assured that His Majesty's sentiments towards you are still the same, that he continues to appreciate you as you merit, and that he is counting on you, your zeal, your friendship, and your devotion to his cause, to keep him informed of all developments which may interest him. You doubtless received letters from His Majesty carried by Mr. Thompson. I have the honor of saluting you with the highest esteem, Duke de Limonade. So, yes, apparently on the 25th of August, a lightning bolt struck the top of the Citadel, as we know, that large mountain, 3,000 feet in the sky. A bolt of lightning hit the citadel, set a bunch of rooms on fire. We lost apparently over 150 soldiers in the disaster. One of those being the governor of the citadel, Prince Noel, who was actually the little brother of his wife, the little brother of the queen, Queen Marie-Louise Cavidad. She lost her brother. As we know, Queen Marie-Louise Cavidad, her life has been struck with a lot of loss. As we know, 2 of her sons died, assassinated. Her husband committed suicide. Her little brother died. A lightning bolt struck the citadel. He died. He was in a gunpowder room, exploded, set on fire, died. After Christophe died and she fled to Europe, her 2 daughters died before her. She ended up dying alone. So she lost all her children, lost her husband, lost her little brother. You know, her life has been struck with a lot of loss that even if she lived a life very wealthy, very rich, certain things money can't buy, man. Certain things money can't replace. So I'm sure that her life was, filled with a lot of grief, man. But I think we can stop part 6 right here. And I think at most, I'm going to make this a 10-part series at most, or try to stop that before then. I'm not trying to make it like, part 27. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to stop at like part 10, make it a 10-part series. I think we could fit it up in there. Hopefully, hopefully. At most, maybe top 15. At most. But yeah, top 10, part 10. I think we could hopefully try to get it in there. And yeah, man, stay tuned. Please support. Cash App in the description. Please donate. Let's build the channel. Love y'all. Let's keep building. Epic series. Peace.
Reincarnated, I'm back in original fashion. I left on a horse and came back in that ass, and I left with abundance and came back to famine. We used to be pyramids, now we be rapping. Look how the mighty have fallen. Used to be running, now we be walking. When you be cooning, that's when they applauded. Selling your soul, your sons and your daughter. Gotta come up in this shit, they stuck in the mix. Really, my heart it be breaking. That's why I'm stacking that paper and handle my business. Pass it down in generation. Talking about money and power and building a nation. That's a deadly combination. Never be watching the TV, they pushing agendas, falsifying information. Know they got malice intentions. Step in the room and I'm feeling the tension. Enemy watching, he blocking my vision. Pay for the check cause I need my redemption. Building my kingdom, I need it protected. Ready for war like a young money Congo. Never decided the team is the motto. Up in the crib and I'm whipping up waffles. Up in the crib and I'm smoking gelato. I'm chilling, I'm taking my pain and make it ambition. I'm blessed by the gods, but I ain't religious. I came for the power, they came for the bitch. They making no hourly wage, I got business. This is an art and they could never be taught. Selling my soul, I can never be bought. Play with my money, I see you ain't caught. Run to the check and I do it for sport. Babylon falling, I go to the source. Packing my luggage and go overseas. Shorty be with me and she so elite. Shorty be chocolate, I'm calling her Hershey. Secret intelligence probably gon' murk me. Don't fuck with brands cause nigga I'm Haitian. Say the wrong shit and you're smacking their faces.